All right, so we'll have a block. So again, each layer has a separate block. So the first step is to transfer your image. So you're gonna have a key image like this. So it's basically just your key image is your image that has the most information, as the outline. It's usually when you print it, it's usually the last layer you print, but it's the one you transfer. So you have a key image first, the size that you want your print to be, and then you want to transfer it to each block. Many things on here. It starts messing. So there's two ways to do registration for multiple block. The first is when you transfer your image. So you could do a photocopy transfer. You could also do like a chalk, do some chalk paper and transfer it. I prefer the photocopy transfer. It's on your block permanently, so you don't have to worry about it rubbing off. So what you want to do is, because I find it almost impossible to have the blocks exactly the same size. If you're a good enough carpenter or can cut well, that's awesome. If you can't cut them exactly the same size, what I do is I register all my transfers to the same corner. So I mark a corner on each block and make sure they're transferred to that corner. So this one here, I'll mark this corner too. This corner, the one I marked off.
Is that wood or is that lino?
That's the backing.
Okay.
Yeah. So we went through that last week. Or no, the week before. No, last week.
Okay.
So if you didn't watch a demo last week, we're backing the lino now for color, just to make the blocks more sturdy. So have to make registration a little bit easier. Because if you do enough layers, you'll probably have a block that's fairly cut out and will be very rigid. And then when you try to line things up, it'll kind of move around a lot and shift. So we're backing them with MDF and using contact cement. And then I've also marked on the corner of my key drawing where it should go down on the block. So you want to make sure that they're always to the same corner. So if you're registering from that same corner, they should be fairly accurate. So the blocks are a little bit off. You should try to get them as close as possible, but if they're a little bit off, they'll be starting from that same corner, so they should line up. And then you do transfer. So I'll do transfer.
So that's a laser print you have there.
Yep. So again, it's done on toner. So this is a photocopy I did at school. They were coming here. And I'm using oil wintergreen again.
So Staples would probably have a laser printer, right?
Yeah, they have a photocopy. They have a photocopy center.
They have a photocopy of it.
Yep. Just make sure when you do get a photocopy for transfers, you get the cheapest paper possible. Because if it's a good quality paper, it has that kind of a coating that holds the toner.
So it's hard to transfer.
Yeah. But it looks really good if you want a photocopy. Transfer that.
Where did you buy your wintergreen oil?
Let's buy that off of Amazon, actually. I bought a big container of it. If you go to Shoppers, you can order it. Health food stores will carry it.
Would Michael's have it maybe?
I doubt it.
It's an essential oil. It's not really meant for what we're using it for. But probably a health food store would probably be your best bet. Transfer it, let it dry, and then you can start carving. So in each block, you can figure out what you want to do for each layer. So for this, for example, this is my kind of final P image layer that I put on top of my layers to bring everything together, hopefully. So this is the print. So,
Okay.
this one I wanted to do kind of a background. And this one I can decide if I want to, I can just do the eyes. So I have to carve everything out except for the eyes. Or, I mean, what some artists will do, they'll carve enough out around, like, for example, the eyes, and use a small roller and just ink up the eyes, and try not to carve more than you need to. It's usually one color per block, but let's say you want to do the feet and the eyes in two different colors. They're separate enough that if you use a small roller, you can get away with doing two colors.
Could you just cut everything out and like literally cut the whole block apart and then just leave enough and then just like stamp the eyes on?
You could, yep. There's another technique we'll go through tonight that's kind of like that. But yeah. But traditionally, no.
It's like cheating.
No, it's not cheating. Innovating. Does everyone understand the transfer, making sure you line up that one corner, and then planning out what you want to do for each block, and then carving it out?
Can you use your thing that you wintergreened more than once?
Um,
Or is that, if you just make multiple
Ooh.
copies?
They'll be faded for the next one, because some of the tone were transferred. I usually use a fresh one each time, so. So I usually will take something and draw out what I want to carve out. I like using pencil crayon to draw out what I plan to cut out. The pencil crayon won't transfer onto your print. It's got wax in it and it just doesn't, just regular ordinary pencil crayon. So usually when I'm carving, I'll draw out, this is a pencil, but I'll draw out what I want to carve. And then I know what I need to carve. Just keep track of things. If you use pencil, it'll transfer onto your print. If it's going to be an area that's going to be dark anyways, you won't see the pencil. That's not a big deal, but if you're working with light colors or transparent colors, then it's going to show up.
So the ink will go over the crayon, pencil crayon?
Yeah, it won't transfer.
Okay.
Yeah. So once you get your blocks carved, then you can go to printing. So I'm going to move to that table there. I'm going to move the camera over. And we'll talk about registration. That still works. Cool. So for printing, so now for printing, you want to make sure everything's lined up, registered properly. So last week we did kind of a drop method. We basically take our paper, we print the first layer as normal with a registration sheet, and then we have the first layer on the paper, and then we take the next layer, ink it up, and then plop it down, and then flip it over. Plop it down. Lay it down. No plop. Like that, and then flip it over, and then rub it back. So that works. It can be a little tricky. Sometimes when you flip it over, it slips. Some people get a little nervous about that. So the other thing you could do is use these They're called registration pins. Or, yeah, registration pins. These ones are metal. They don't make metal ones anymore. They switched over to plastic now.
Where do you get those?
Hues sells them in packages over there.
Okay.
Also, I'll have some on hand so I can use them, try them out. So to use these, we need to use these registration tabs to go with the pins. So they're pieces of plastic that have a hole in them that fits into the raised part of the pin. Like so. So on the back of each piece of paper, you want to tape 2 tabs on the back, just with green painter's tape. And you want to keep them fairly consistent. So I measured 1 inch away from the edge of the paper. I made 2 pencil marks. Like so. You have to do that for each sheet of printing paper. And so along with this, we're going to use, I don't know what to call this. It's an L-shaped piece of mat board.
Is that square?
Set square, registration frame.
Okay.
Registration frame. That sounds good. So what you're going to do is when you're printing, you're going to have your block in here, and then your paper is going to go in here. And this is going to be taped down to the table. So, when I cut my paper, I made sure I had 1.5 inches on either side and on the bottom. So I'm going to measure 1.5 inches from the inside to here. And same here. You can mark it with some green painter's tape. Or draw it out if you want. So, like so. And then my paper is going to fit in here, like so. And then I'm going to take my pins and place them in the holes and then tape my pins to the registration frame. So the plop and flip method is a lot more straightforward. This takes a bit of prep work, but it's a really accurate way to register.
So if you're doing multi-prints, you have a lot of papers with pins on,
A lot of tabs, yeah.
in addition.
Mm-hmm.
And so it only works well if you put them in the exact same spot on successive pieces of paper.
Yeah, what I like to do is I'll set up the first one like this, and then for my next piece of paper, once I got my pins taped down, I'll put it here and then have tabs of tape on them and kind of stick them in. If the tabs are a little bit off, it's okay. It doesn't mean your layer is going to be misregistered. It just means the entire image might shift back and forth a little bit. So if these were moved over like 1/4 of an inch, that just means the entire image is going to shift over 1/4 of an inch. Which, so. that make sense?
I think it will when I see it.
So when I print, I'll have my block here, and then I put down my paper like this, like so.
Okay, don't touch that. Sorry, this is just like this.
Nope.
Okay.
Sure. And you can kind of. Oh. Once your pins are set up, you don't want to take them off until you finish your print completely. So, like that. Block goes here, and then your paper fits on top like that into the pin. Like so. I usually tape down the frame to the table so it doesn't move. So make sure there's a piece of mylar underneath the frame so it's easier to keep clean when you're printing. So a piece of tape there, so a piece of tape on either side of the L. That. And that. Picture? I think it's one of the things we have to try and then,
Yeah, absolutely.
then do it. But it is a really nice way to register once you get the hang of it. So we'll go ahead and print 2 layers. I was trimming elm trees this weekend. I'm loading up the truck. And I got attacked by elm.
Day one.
Hmm?
Day one.
Yeah.
How long did you have to wait to dump them? Was it quick?
I did 3 trips. I thought it was just 1 trip. And so the first 2 trips were pretty good in the morning, and then the last one I had to wait in line for a while.
Yeah.
I did go to the new facility. It's quite nice.
Like
Nice sorting
Yeah.
system.
Alcatraz though.
Oh, really?
Like, are you talking about the dump?
Yeah.
Like you like drive in
Oh,
and there's like escape.
Yeah.
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 It seems like
yeah.
really
Great.
expensive.
And it's also
Yeah.
busy weekday mornings, let me tell you.
Yeah. Alrighty. Any colors? No? Yes.
Just maybe there's some garbage doesn't go out.
So we kind of went over color last week. For this class, you don't have to buy colors unless you want to. These colors will be available for you if you want to mix some color and take them home with you. And can wrap them up in some wax paper. So if you want to print at home color, please do. Along with the color, there's an extender. It's a transparent base to make your colors more transparent. Do you want to try a blend?
Sure.
Let's live the dream.
Does ink get old, like, really fast?
It does. So Cranfield bought the ink. It used to be called Calco. This is, I don't know, 15 years old.
Oh,
It goes through nothing.
But I think probably if I cut the tube. to move this out of the way. I don't know how much of this video will actually show up. I do have a previous video. I think I did everything in the center table before. I'll send both videos and you can choose. I almost have a drone or something.
Yeah. So the extended
The
gives it a
extender,
transparency.
yeah, it makes it transparent. So when you're working with color, you can think about working in layers. So you can make your colors more transparent or more opaque, and it'll affect the way they sit on top of each other. So you can create new colors by the way they overlap. So if you did like a yellow first and you did transparent blue on top, you get a green. So you can play with color that way, kind of things.
It doesn't change the properties. The extender doesn't actually extend in any way.
In theory, if you add a little bit, it will extend the quantity of ink. If you use it like I am, it acts as a transparent base. When you're working with color, you also want to test out your color. When it's in a big pile like this, it's going to it'll look darker than it actually prints. It'll print closer to this. So I do a drawdown. I basically take my palette knife and do a draw. If you're doing a blend, you basically put the colors where you want them rolled up. So if I just want a little bit of green here, put it there. I'll take my blue. You can do more than one color, or two colors, pardon me. Do multiple colors. You can do a color going to the extender to create kind of a fade. That's nice too. And then to do a blend, you're going to start off by rolling it like you normally do, back and forth. And you get them to blend, you kind of just shift it a little bit this way and a little bit that way, so they start blending.
I did a nice tree one.
A nice kind of blend.
That's pretty nice.
Yeah, the other color. Purple? This or the purple? Focus colors.
I'm just looking, oh yeah, you can buy purples, can't you?
Yeah, they have more inks now. I think before they had a limited amount, now they branched out. They are expensive, but they are really good inks. You get what you pay for.
I think the press day is going to be an expensive day. You said you're going to use one of those presses,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna buy
That's
it.
bad news.
How much is it? Oh,
They're not cheap.
Hundreds.
hundreds, yeah.
The smallest one I think is 300.
Oh. That ain't happening. I got too much art at home. Too much different stuff.
Sure.
I do so much different art.
Blending.
So you're getting all of them ready. Yeah.
For multi-block you can, to a certain extent. So ideally, you can do 2 layers, one after the other. It's best if you can let them dry overnight in between. If you do more than two, what happens, you get sometimes offsetting where the color that's on the print will transfer onto the block, and you can tear your paper and get stuck. You'll see a little bit of that tonight, but you get away with doing two. I have done prints where I've done like 4 layers in a day, but you have to be really careful. So make sure your ink on your palette is nice and thin. Don't go too thick. Issue. Put that over there. Here. And I've got Mylar everywhere, so I can ink up, clean up after. So when you're working with an opaque color, you kind of roll it up just like a black. Fan it out.
I've been noticing, it's really hard to get, like, you think it's like, I put a lot of ink on and I keep putting ink on it, and either I'm not transferring it properly, but it still fades. Is it just the paper, or is it just the way printing is?
Like you find it prints lighter than you think.
Yeah.
Yeah, hand printing is hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll try the press out, you'll see the difference.
Maybe that's why I keep putting this ink on, and it just doesn't seem to, it gets darker, but never really dark.
Yeah. Have you been doing like proofs, like on newsprint?
Yeah.
That helps if you start with some newsprint and kind of build up your block.
Is it just the nature of how we're doing it?
By printing by hand, yeah, it takes a little more elbow grease, yeah.
And then you figure you switch paper, and that makes a difference.
Definitely, yeah. Thinner paper works better because less
Yeah.
pressure is needed.
Like this, like a thin.
So now I'm going to use the blend on the background. Last time I did kind of an orangey reddy color. So we have brayers here, so they're the smaller rollers. If you're working with transparent colors, you kind of have to finesse the rolling a little bit, just because the diameter is pretty small, so you'll get kind of lap lines, like the image will repeat. So you kind of have to fan it out, and it works okay. At the university, we have large rubber rollers with that much of a diameter, so the image never repeats. We don't have them here, so we have to make do, and they're quite expensive. So kind of have to make do. So I'm kind of going a little bit in different directions just to help.
What do you mean when you said the image never repeats with the word ruler? It's just that you.
So, because this diameter is smaller than this side of the block, so when I roll up straight, you can actually see the image with ink coming off the roller onto the image. And if you go far enough, it kind of repeats itself, and sometimes that repeated image comes back down on the block. So if your colors are really, really transparent, you'll actually see a kind of a ghost image. So to avoid that, you kind of go in different directions, kind of fan it out. And that works okay. Over time, the more prints you do with the fade, the more they're kind of will start to blend together. They'll change a little bit. So if you can, be consistent. Just go with it. It's gonna. So
Yeah.
So I'm gonna set up over here. So my block's in there. If you really want to make sure it doesn't move, you can create little tape tabs. So if you take a roll of tape and use X-Acto knife and then cut in a few layers. Careful not to cut your fingers. Basically, you end up with a thick piece of tape. And if you cut that without cutting off your fingers, you can use them to lock in the block so it doesn't move. So normally I start with some newsprint, but I'm just gonna go ahead and print on a good piece of paper, so I might be a little bit late. Go with it. So use the tabs. So make sure they're in the holes first. And drop the piece of paper. And then you're on the back of it. So huggle the spoon. Spoon burn. Maybe burn.
So if you get a press, you don't have to worry about that little step there.
It's true.
Oh, that's why, yeah.
Merry Christmas.
Yeah.
I had one student, her husband built her a press using
Hey,
a car jack.
really? Oh,
Yeah. There's plans online.
I should have given my husband to. He's always when he's hey, I should write that down. Honey, for Christmas you're building me a press of a car jack. And they'll say go buy one.
First layer, and I can take my block off, and I can take my second block. So I guess another option is if you don't want registration pins, you can use tape. But if we could come back and do another couple of layers, then the pins are nice to have. Pins are more accurate, I think. And second layer.
Could you make a generalization about like the average color print? Is it done this way or with on the same block, or is it
No, I mean, most traditional Japanese prints are done multi-block. It's a pretty big tradition there. If you ever see the Picasso prints in the Rini, they're all reduction.
okay?
He tried multiple block, I think once, and he didn't like he found it too tedious.
Okay.
He preferred the freedom of just going, using one block and just printing it, so. Yeah, I don't know if there's a exact number. Usually when I teach relief printing at the university, they get scared of the reduction.
I think I'm more scared of that.
And then they realize like the registration is tricky too, so. Pick one, there's an advantage over one or the other.
She seems to be using the same one.
There.
Oh, that's so cool.
And the registration's pretty decent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
So that's multi-block with the registration.
Mm-hmm.
Picture. Alright. So multi-block part 2. Let's bring So a more traditional way to do multi-block is to use registration marks that are carved into your block. So these ones here. So the corner mark usually and the center mark. So those are called Kento marks. So it's a Japanese way to do registration. So Kento, it's K-E-N-T-O, Kento. So each block has the Kento marks that you use for registration.
And the paper goes within those.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, so the paper would go down. Again here.
Right.
So when you transfer your image, you want to draw out your Kento marks, like I've done here, and make sure they get transferred on each block. You don't want to just transfer your image, you want to transfer your image and your Kento marks, so you can carve both of them. So you have to be, because you're cutting out the Kento marks, you have to make sure you spend some time, make sure you do it nice and straight, otherwise one layer might be a little bit wonky, a little bit crooked. Mine was nice, you can like use a knife and make nice straight edges with a ruler and then carve against that edge with a U-gouge. You get really nice crisp sharp edges. The advantages to this is that you can use different sizes of blocks. So if I have a block that's a little bit larger, it doesn't matter because the Kento marks are in the same spot relative to your image. So you don't have to worry about making these exactly the same size. These are pretty close, but they're a little bit off. So. Yeah. This one.
So that's 3 different colors?
3 different colors. Yeah. And then there's they use a Japanese paper and then shinkolate it onto the paper. This one was printed by hand because I decided to print one by hand for the class.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah.
That's really nice.
Do you want me to print one with this method? I have my paper over here. I use the same colors, but the idea. So you transfer the Kento blocks, cut them out, but when you go to ink them, ink your block, you don't ink out the Kento block. And so this is the edge of your paper. So you have to decide how much space you want between your image and the edge of the paper. I think a lot of Japanese prints, they don't have a lot of a border, much of a border, so you don't necessarily need a border, but that's okay. So I'll just do 2.
But that one image you had the Kento marks on.
This one, yes, this one?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then when I did the oil wintergreen transfer, I made sure I transferred the marks onto each block so I can carve them out.
Oh, okay. Right from the start.
Yeah.
So that's your image to go into the block.
Yeah, so each one.
I was thinking that was something you printed and you wanted in Kento blocks. Quite simply.
If you don't have a photocopier, you can do your kind of your key image, like this one, with all the detail and the Kento blocks. Ink it up, and then print onto wax paper.
Okay.
And then transfer the image from the wax paper to each block, because the ink won't stick onto the wax paper and won't absorb, so you can do a count rubbing onto each one. So that's a possibility too. These two? Sure. The kind of mark can be a little bit tricky. You have to make sure your paper's square. So it does take a little more finesse.
Planning, just the planning in advance kind of
Yep.
guarantees that it'll.
So maybe the plop and flip is something to think about. Drop and flip, I should say. But now I got plop in my head. Plop jumpy. That's one. That's two. Green bits. We'll see. Which looks the squarest. So again, when you're lining it up, so the inside edge, the Kento marks go to the edge of the paper. And you want to drop down your paper. And first layer. Yeah, we'll see how square my paper is.
Wow. That's really nice.
Oh, that's the Kento marks. That's basically multi-block printing.
That looks interesting. The puzzle looks interesting to me.
Mhm.
Oh, this is.
So the other method of color that I'll show you tonight is puzzle piece or jigsaw. Basically, you carve and then you cut out the block. So you can see which pieces make up which part of the image. So advantage of this.
An X-Acto knife sort of thing?
Yeah, so we're using lino. So lino is pretty easy to cut through. If you're going to do this, I would heat up the lino. It makes it really easy to cut. If you're using wood, then you'd have to use a power tool, I imagine. So sharp X-Acto knife, heat the lino. It should be pretty easy. Or, you know, easy enough. When you cut, you want to make sure you cut the pieces at about a 45-degree angle, so it's a beveled cut. So that's just not a straight cut. That helps lock in the pieces. So if it's a straight cut, they tend to kind of shift around a bit. So if you do kind of a beveled cut, so they fit in nicer, that's what you want.
You start with the whole image and then you divide it.
Usually that's what I do. I'm sure there's exceptions, or you might pull a proof and decide you need more cutting after you've cut the individual pieces out, so you can go back and cut. There's nothing wrong with that. Generally, you start off by carving the whole image and then cutting out what you want.
Question.
Yes.
I get the puzzle. What if you just want, you like this darn tree?
Yes.
Okay. Can you cut just this out and move it along, or what do you do? Like, if I want this tree in different pictures and different colors, like how would I do that? Like, just cut it out and just move it along?
What do you mean by moving? Like, I'm using it for different images?
Yeah. Yeah, multiple different pictures at different times.
Yeah, I mean, with lino, you can cut it out into different shapes and just use it over and over again.
So,
Like a
So it
stamp.
Like a
doesn't,
stamp.
like
Yeah.
a stamp. It doesn't have to be a puzzle, right?
No.
Okay.
And then would you put it all back together once it's got all the different colors of ink on it?
Yep.
And then you don't do it like one piece at a time?
No, not generally. So you ink up each piece separately, then bring them together. I usually use those thick pieces of tape to kind of help support and keep them together. Just use the registration sheet. You could use the registration frame as well if you wanted to, and then lay down your paper then.
So what's the advantage of doing it that way versus?
Just a different look. I mean, each color, the pieces are completely separate, so you're not worrying about layering so much.
So you have to be fast with this though, don't you? Like, no? Like,
In terms of ink drying, or
yeah,
this ink takes a while to dry.
that's right. Because
Losing my voice.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so you have time to work with it for sure. So yeah, so you don't have to really worry about layering. So if you want like a pure blue for your sky, you don't
And
have to worry about putting other colors on top. And
Let's say if you want a different sky down the road.
Yep.
You can just,
you can make it yellow, purple,
oh, whatever you
black.
want. Okay,
whatever
gotcha.
you like.
Okay.
So that's a nice thing about it too. You can clean the blocks and then you get a different color. You can take pieces and incorporate them into other
Yeah.
images as well.
So for, like, if you're doing this as an art,
You can
whenever you're doing additions.
Yeah.
Is this becomes a once thing though? Like
No.
you can use it multiple times, but is
Yeah.
it just like the first printings that you can number as additions, or could you go and like a year later do the same thing?
If you use the same colors, I guess.
Okay.
If you wanted to do a landscape but in a different
Yeah, like different colors.
colors, then you put version 2 or something.
Okay.
And you sign that,
So let's say down the road you don't like the blue lake.
yeah.
Whatever you want, but flowers.
Excuse me.
You
Yep.
just take it out and do whatever, and then put it back in.
If we really want to, you can combine all three. Don't. I don't know. Maybe. So puzzle piece makes sense.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's fun.
that's like the best one.
Yeah.
So good. Yeah. The color is just like, it's really good.
Alrighty, I think that's it for the demo.